we are still conducting these meetings virtually. As per Governor Walz's declared the peacetime emergency, Executive Order 20-01, in response to COVID-19, on council chairs determined it's not practical yet or prudent to conduct in-person meetings for reasons stated in the governor's emergency executive order. Accordingly, committee members participate in this meeting via telephone or other electronic means. The meeting will be conducted under Minnesota Statute Section 13D-021 on this date and time. We encourage members of the public to monitor the meeting remotely. If they have comments, they can email us at public.info@met.state.mn.us, and we'll respond to your comments in a timely manner. So with that, can we call the roll to make sure we have quorum, please?
Barber, Gonzalez, Lee,
Here.
Lilligren,
Here.
Muse,
Here.
Ferguson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we have an amended agenda. Do we need to make a motion on the agenda because it's been amended?
I do not believe we do because this is a regular meeting, not a special meeting.
Okay. So the agenda has been amended, but if there's any changes to that agenda that people would like to see, now would be the time. All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the special management committee meeting for May 26th, 2021?
Lilligren moves.
Is there a second?
Second by Lee.
Is there any discussion? All right, we have the motion has been moved by Lilligren, seconded by Lee. Can we call the roll?
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Muse,
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion carries. We have one business item on our agenda today. The first business item is business item 2021-146, salary recommendation for the regional administrator. Marcy?
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. At its 4 o'clock meeting today, the full council is scheduled to consider Chair Zelli's recommended appointment of Mary Bogie for the position of regional administrator. So item 2021-146 before you today requests approval for the salary for the regional administrator upon ratification of the appointment by the full council. So per section 1010 of the non-rep plan, the council chair may propose starting salary for the regional administrator. The council chair advises the management committee of his recommendation and obtains its consent. So the proposed annual salary you are asked to approve is $227,469. I'd like to provide a bit of background about the salary recommendation. The position of regional administrator compares to the public sector positions of county or city administrator, and this salary is competitive based on a review of 2020 salaries for comparable regional positions. It is also equitable within the executive group at the council. The proposed salary falls within the established rules for local government compensation limits. The council did receive a cap waiver for this position 2 years ago, and the salary is well under that cap. And with this recommendation, Chair Zelli recognizes the breadth and the depth of experience he brings to the job, which includes 18 years with the council as a highly respected financial and visionary leader. So, Chair and council members, the proposed action is that the committee accept Chair Zelli's salary recommendation for Mary Bogie, Regional Administrator, effective June 10th, 2021, upon the ratification of her appointment by the full council. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions for the presenter? All right, Seeing none, is there a motion to approve Chair Zedley's recommendation for salary for the regional administrator?
Lilligren moves. Second by Lee.
The motion was moved by Lilligren, seconded by Lee. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, can we call the roll, please?
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Musse,
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Thank you.
I think Councilmember Barber has joined us as well.
Barber. Councilmember Barber, you are muted. Are you voting on this item?
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the motion carries. Thank you, Mary. We look forward to having lots of great working together over the next few years. We'll say more at the council meeting. So with that, we have two information items. The first information item is a discussion of the construction process execution. I think we have Jody, Jacoby, Robert, Carey, and Procurements and Contracts, and Elaine presenting to us today.
Excellent. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Jody Jacoby, and I'm really excited to be here to provide a high-level overview of the construction procurement process at the Met Council. And with me today is Robert Carey, a great partner and co-presenters today. He's the contracts manager in procurement, and his staff oversees the facilitation of bids and proposals. Also with me today is Elaine Ogilvie. She's with the Office of Equal Opportunity, and she's the small business supervisor. And her area is responsible for setting goals, reviewing goals, and monitoring goals. As you're aware, this committee was instrumental in reviewing and approving our equity grant, which is reducing racial disparities through advancing equity in contracting. And just as a refresher, that equity grant was a collaborative proposal that included financial incentives for exceeding the MCUB goal in 2 construction projects. And so it also included funding for on-the-job training and construction for trades, and then building capacity for MCUB businesses. So this information item is intended to help you understand the typical procurement process for construction projects. And it has 2 parts to it. The first part will provide the foundation and the framework to help you understand a standard procurement process from project approval to contract execution. And then the second part is to illustrate a recent case study of a construction project to show actual milestones achieved and the schedule and all the things that came into play, again, to just put it in perspective. Next slide, please. There's a lot of work that happens before the projects actually advertise. And this is what we call a pre-solicitation in the process and steps. And we have some of these high-level steps indicated on the slide. The first one is the initiation, and that starts with an internal form called a contract initiation memo. It's required in Council Procedure 14-2A, which is a delegation of procurement and contract authority. And so procurement can work on a project after the budget and the project have been approved. And a SIM is required for any project that's greater than $50,000. So it starts with the project manager who initiates it, and then it goes to his manager. And then the next pieces depend on if it's funded by a grant, it'll go to finance. And then the Office of Equal Opportunity also has input, and Elaine will talk about it with the form that's completed. All of this information is intended to get everybody agreed to, again, the project and the budget, but for procurement to be able to take all that information and be able to go out to advertisement. But Elaine's going to talk just a little bit about the information collected during the SIM process by OEO to help set a goal.
Thanks, Jody. Good afternoon, Chair and council members. Excited to be here to talk about this. As Jody mentioned, we do have a piece in this process, a very big piece in the process. So when a SIM is routed, we are part of its route. And when upon receiving a SIM, it is assigned to one of the small business specialists. As you know, I have five staff on my team that they are designated to review for goal setting, and they monitor the contract as well for compliance. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in this presentation. In the initial steps, the specialist does review the cost estimate for particular scopes of work that would be applicable to goal setting. The intake form that Jody mentioned is a piece of that process. The intake form is a form that the project manager completes and is approximately 8 or 9 questions that ask very specifically details about the project that help us in our goal setting analysis. So anything that would, scopes that would require special certifications, if any piece of it is a sole source, how far along is the cost estimate, just all a lot of information that is very helpful and useful to the small business specialists when they are reviewing the project for a goal. The specialist will review the cost estimate, the intake form, do an initial analysis. They may reach out to the project manager to ask additional questions if they have any, and then they will proceed with setting a goal, which is goal setting is a mathematical equation that is based on the scope of work, the value of the scope, the relative availability of the DBE or MCUB that can perform that scope, and compared to the overall initial cost of the contract.
Thank you, Elaine. So after the contract initiation memo is approved, procurement and the project manager meet to develop an overview of the project expectations, responsibilities, and then they work on procurement action lead time. Following that, a solicitation planning package is developed that looks at or identifies funding sources, if it's a DBE or an MCUB project with the goals, insurance and bonding, liquidated damages, if there is any easements or right-of-way that needs to be addressed, additional equity considerations, and then looking at the contract and solicitation type. We also build in document and stakeholder review, working with if there's any design firms that helped prepare the solicitation documents. And then there may be review and input from peers or other leaders in not only the business community or in the project manager. We include risk, OGC, and then OEO. And then a final approval is provided by the business unit, and then the advertisement and outreach are the next steps. The next page or the next piece, you can move to the next slide, Lori, is to talk about solicitation and post-bid process, where Robert Carey will address this area.
Thank you, Jody. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. As Jody mentioned, my name is Robert Carey, and I'm the contracts manager in procurement. Jody and Elaine have discussed the efforts that go into the pre-solicitation process steps. And in this slide, I'll discuss the steps from the time of advertisement to the submission of bids and the subsequent evaluation of those bids by procurement and the Office of Equal Opportunity. So once we've determined the solicitation type, and the requirements as indicated within the contract initiation memo. We advertise all projects and we post that advertisement to the council's contracting opportunities page. In that advertisement includes a link to the bidding documents that are placed on a third-party advertising platform known as Quest CDN. In an effort for additional engagement and outreach, the council will also advertise in other locations based on the solicitation type and the area of service. After the project's been advertised, the next step is to host a pre-bid meeting. This meeting is hosted by council staff that includes the business unit project manager, the IFB administrator, and the equal opportunity consultant or OEO representative. And at this meeting, we outline the solicitation requirements, we discuss the equity requirements, and we also discuss project specifications, and we open up and allow a discussion for plan holder inquiries or questions. If we are unable to answer the questions during the pre-bid meeting, we capture those the questions submitted in writing and respond by addendum. The question and answer phase includes those additional questions that I just discussed, where specific questions as it relates to maybe drawings that require being addressed by our consultant or design firm, and then we will again post any addendum to that third-party platform, Quest CDN. And that ensures that all registered plan holders have the same information at the same time. So after we've hosted the pre-bid meeting and answered all plan holder inquiries, the next step is to open bids. Procurement staff include both the reader and the witness for all bid openings. And in that meeting or in that opening, we indicate the total value of all of the bid submissions. And we've been hosting these meetings by WebEx or any form of Teams or any other virtual setting. After the bid has been opened, a bid summary of all submissions is posted to those registered plan holders on Quest CDN. Once we've posted the bid results, we begin the evaluation of the responsiveness. The evaluation of responsiveness is ensuring and verifying that all required submitted information in accordance to the instructions in the IFB can be verified to establish an apparent low responsive bidder. Once that determination has been made of an apparent low bidder, if there is a MCUB or a DBE goal, that apparent low bidder documents that support their commitments is routed to the Office of Equal Opportunity to evaluate their commitments and good faith efforts to meet the goals. Next slide.
Thanks, Rob. This is the process that the small business unit staff takes to review their a bidder's commitments. There are primarily two documents that are required at time of bid, and that is the commitment form of who they intend to utilize to meet the goal, and the letter of intent. So for every firm that they have listed on the commitment form, they must have an accompanying letter of intent from that small business with their signature, signing that they intend to participate on the contract for the bidder. These documents are aggressively reviewed by my staff. Not only are we reviewing the numeric calculation accuracy of what they have listed as their participation commitment, but we are also looking to ensure that the firms that they listed on this form are indeed, one, applicable to the program that, or are certified in the program that applies to the contract. A contract either has a DBE goal or an MCUB goal, but never both. So we want to ensure that the firms that they are listing are certified in the correct program for the contract that they are bidding on. We want to ensure that, again, that the firms that are listed on the commitment form do in fact provide the product or service for which the bidder is hiring them to do. Part of the commitment form states the bidder or the DBE or MCUB's name, the scope of work that they are utilizing them for, the contract value, so on and so forth. So my team confirms all of this information before moving forward. If the goal or if the bidder met the goal numerically, we create an internal memo letting procurement know that this bidder has met the goal, and we forward that to procurement and they move forward with their award process. If the bidder did not meet the goal numerically, we then look to review the bidder's documented good faith efforts. Again, if the bidder did not meet the goal numerically, they must submit their documented good faith efforts at time of bid as a matter of responsiveness. Good faith efforts documentation is again required at time of bid, but it outlines and documents the steps that the bidder took in terms of their efforts to achieve the goal, even if they weren't successful. So examples of this would include things like who they reached out to, what DBE MCUB firms they reached out to, a copy of the solicitation email that they sent, if they followed up with correspondence, if any negotiations happened, if there was any support with these DBE or MCUBs to try to help them with bonding or equipment. Those are the types of things that are included in good faith efforts. And once that determination is made, again, OEO creates an evaluation and it gets forwarded to procurement for the next steps.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Elaine. So now that bids have been evaluated for their responsiveness to the solicitation requirements, I'm going to discuss the post-bid and pre-award process steps that we follow. The first step is establishing the responsibility of the apparent low bidder. Procurement staff review all required documentation to support that this apparent low bidder is a responsible bidder, and we do so through verification with both state debarments and any federal exclusions. Upon verification that there are no use of debarred vendors in their subcontracting or as a prime bidder, and that there are no exclusions that are recognized through the system of award management, we move forward with the next step, which is the request for action. If a contract value is less than $2.5 million for major construction, a request for action is issued to the signature authority for the authorization to award. If it's greater than that $2.5 million threshold, a business item is created and it's presented to the respective committee and council for the authorization to award. Upon the authorization to award, a notice of that intent to award is posted to all plan holders through Quest CDN. Next slide, please. So now we'll move into the post-award process steps. This is where we transmit the contract to the awarded bidder. They receive that with a request to execute and return all required documents. This can include things like insurance, payment and performance bonds, necessary certifications, and any other documents in accordance with the solicitation requirements. We also verify the bonds and insurance with the surety company or broker that provides those documents. Once we can verify that all bonding and insurance meets the requirements, we move on to the contract execution. That contract execution is routed through Adobe DocuSign, and the authorized signatures or authority that have been delegated execute that document. Once both parties execute the contract, we move into the notice to proceed. And this is where we notify the apparent low bidder and the contractor that's executed the agreement that they have a notice to proceed, which allows them to begin work on the project and begin billing the council. Next slide.
So
these
now
are
we're
the,
at, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Rob.
sorry, Jody.
So now we're at project closeout and steps. Procurement facilitates a handoff with the project manager to help them, again, high level understand what the project is, how they need to collect insurance, any other factors or consideration. And then we follow up with all the file documentation. And depending on the unique nature of each project, it could have 52 different items up to. I mean, some of our checklists have that, of things that need to be included for the procurement file to be considered complete. Project closeouts happen with the project manager, who's really responsible at that time for the day-to-day management of the project, and then also the DBE goals or MCUB goals, and OEO stays closely in the loop with any developments on that. And so you can see it's a pretty regulated, systematic process, and with construction projects, it's very, very in statute, it's prescribed on what we can do and what we really can't do. And that's why also price is the sole determination of award. As Rob mentioned, a vendor or a bidder needs to be responsive and responsible, but because it's so consistent and systematic, we can go down to just price and those other factors. Next slide, Rob will handle this side and talk about a case study that really helps with the understanding of the foundation of the process and to show an actual project and some of the dates and milestones that occurred.
Thank you, Jody. Mr. Chair and council or committee members, this is an example of a case study, and as Jody mentioned, that it will showcase how the milestones that we've highlighted in the previous slides, how they're met. Next slide, please. So we look at what we refer to as a procurement action lead time, and this is the lead times that are established at the onset of a solicitation or a project initiation. And we strive to meet these milestones, and this is a project that showcases meeting those milestones that we've just discussed. So you can see here that on July 29th, the contract initiation memo was created. We determined that there's capital funding in finance, approves the SIM. We then move into the Office of Equal Opportunity, establishing the goal. That's approved by the general manager and assigned to the principal contract administrator. And that really highlights that initiation and that collaborative key stakeholder group of finance, OEO, the Office of Equal Opportunity, procurement, and any other stakeholders. Next slide. So this is in reference to the engagement that occurs once the SIM is assigned. For major construction projects, we look at the front-end construction request form. We also want to ensure that there are no organizational conflicts of interest so that we don't have to indicate any of those conflicts of interest before we solicit. The project manager provides all technical specifications and drawings that may be supported in-house or with the use of a consultant of an A&E firm. The procurement then drafts the preliminary invitation for bids and routes that for key stakeholder review. Once that document is finalized, we move forward with a request for the bid authorization to move into the next step, which is to begin the process of advertisement, not just to the council's webpage, but also to Quest CDN. In this case, based on the area of service, as previously mentioned, additional engagement and outreach was determined to be in the best interest of the council, and we also advertised in the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Next slide, please. So now we're in the solicitation phase. The invitation for bid is advertised. It's posted to Quest CDN. You see here that the bids were originally due. Any change to any of the bid documents requires to be done through addendum. That's highlighted here that the bid due date was changed. The pre-bid meeting was hosted. As mentioned, we've done this by WebEx or Microsoft Teams. This is where council staff highlight any of the business requirements, inquiries from plan holders. The Office of Equal Opportunity present the goal requirements. The project manager is there in addition with any design consultants to present the specifics of the deliverables that are intended to be met with this project. And in this case, there was a site visit that was held. It's often key in major construction projects to be able to have a site visit. And that's a process that even during COVID times, we've been able to respond accordingly and host those under the restrictions. Then you can see that the fourth addendum was issued, and this addendum answered all of the questions, provided the pre-bid documentation, which includes attendees, any minutes, and then any updates to or modifications to the specification, plans, drawings, and then, as noted, the bid extension. Next slide. So now we're at the point where we're going to open bids. That public bid meeting is held virtual via WebEx. The bids are read and recorded by procurement staff, and then that bid summary is posted directly to Quest CDN. After we've posted the bid summary, we move into the evaluation of bids phase. You can see here that that occurred by the PCA over a 2-day period where we verify the accuracy of the calculations within the bid. We determine the responsiveness of the bid requirements and submissions by the low bidder. We determine that the ALB has submitted MCUB documents, and we send those to the Office of Equal Opportunity for their review. Upon their review, we see that they passed their goal, and we can move on into the next process step. Next slide, please. In this case, as mentioned, the project was under 2.5, and so the authority is designated within to our regional administrator. And so the request for action was routed internally for that approval. You can see that that happens fairly quickly in our internal process, and then we move into the notice of award up to the notice to proceed. And this is where we indicate upon the authorization to award, all plan holders are informed of our intent to award to that low, responsible bidder. And then we send out a notice of award, which is also recognized as a contract transmittal to that awarded vendor. Those documents and contracts are signed, and then we verify any and all bonding, insurance, certification requirements associated with the solicitation. And then we route that document for its final signature within the council. Again, that was the regional administrator. And this project followed a procurement action lead time of 120 days. And the final notice to proceed was issued on February 24th, 2021, which gave this a complete number of days of 119. Next slide, please. So that concludes the overview of the major construction process steps and a case study, and we would welcome any questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members? I just have one, I guess, on the setting of the goal part. Is there like a worksheet that we do where we say these are the types of things that we see needed in the contract, and we see no DVEs and or MCUBs in these spaces, so and then we see MCUBs in these spaces, so in some the goal is X? Or how do we come up with that number, and is that something that could be included in the business item when it gets approved by council for these larger contracts?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, committee members, Yes. So when we receive the cost estimate from the project manager, the cost estimate clearly defines what scopes of work are in that project. And so the small business specialist goes line by line and looks at every individual scope and determines the relative availability of DBE or MCUB firms that we have for each individual scope. And it is a mathematical equation of what the relative availability is for each of those scopes. There are times where, depending on the project, if it's highly specialized or something like that, we may not have a DBE or MCUB firm that performs a type of work, but that is only determined after a thorough review, and oftentimes we call these firms to ensure we don't want to just rely on what we see in the directory or based on our own personal knowledge. We oftentimes will call the firms and ask them, do you do this type of work? Could you provide this type of service to ensure that we're not eliminating or falsely leaving out any firms that could potentially participate?
Yeah, and I guess what I'm thinking too is that it gives firms that are interested in doing work with us a bit of a roadmap as to where we're spending money. So if you're a construction firm that does X and Y, and Z is sort of a similar type of business, but you haven't historically done that, and we spend 100 million a year doing Z, maybe you want to go out and expand your business in that area. And I think right now it's very difficult because I've tried in our space to ask government agencies, and it's not easy for them to pull it because it's not something necessarily that's easily tracked, right? So this would just be a way people would have to go through the work, right, of seeing that work. But if we're doing the work anywhere and we make it available, then people can kind of see where some of those opportunities might be in areas where we don't see any DBEs. And that might be an area where people might want to think about, starting or growing or expanding their business in a particular area. And we've talked before about partnering with people like META and others, and maybe just data we want to share with them to say, this is where we're spending, hundreds of millions of dollars in these areas, and if there were MCUBs here, there's opportunities for them, but we're not seeing any. And either it's people that are there and not registered, or they're not registered properly, or there's just opportunities for people to grow their business in those spaces. But if we're gathering that data anyways, that might be a great opportunity for us to share that out with the community and be able to sort of give people that roadmap as to how they want to think about expansion. Councilmember Lee.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the great presentation. I had a question about how we may do outreach. One of my former colleagues in the St. Paul Mayor's office now works in the Department of Administration. And last month was Asian American History Month. And she had sent to me and some other friends and folks in her network a flyer for something that the administration department was doing, which was they put on a kind of like an open house webinar to specifically target Asian American businesses. And the title of it was something like how to contract or become a vendor for the state of Minnesota or something like that. And I was wondering if we at the Met Council do something similar, or we could do something similar in our contracting services too.
Mr. Chair, committee members, that's a great question, and I know the event that you're speaking about, and we do something similar right now, only it's not targeted to a specific group. So we have partnered with Procurement to host sessions that are titled "Doing Business with the Metropolitan Council." So it walks through how to find opportunities, what the requirements are, who to talk to, who to contact. We have done that a few times here in the last few years. I think you've probably all heard Ashanti has mentioned in previous presentations that we have a new unit being established in the office, the Engagement and Development Unit. And that is something that they will be focusing on. And we are actually helping to put together some of the data and identify some of those target areas. This kind of ties back also to Chair Ferguson's question about the targeted scopes. We are compiling data as we speak, actually, and we'll be definitely looking to host very targeted engagement sessions to do exactly what you just mentioned and almost mimic what the state is doing. I think this was the second one. They had another one that I believe was focused on Black woman owned firms, which I thought was a great idea. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're going to steal their ideas because it's a great one.
Thank you.
Chair Ferguson, can I jump in?
Go ahead, Councilor Mose.
Yeah, I just want to echo Councilmember Lee's point, and also thank Elaine for the outreach. I'll just suggest that we really double that amount of outreach, specifically for hard to reach communities that really need extra effort, trust building, deep outreach, like Native community, Latino, Hmong, African American community, immigrant communities from Africa. These communities really need extra efforts from our end. And the other thing I think might make a difference will be really assigning a contract navigator, someone who can really help folks to navigate. Every time I get call from someone who's trying to understand how our process works, and it would be better if we have one designated staff member who can help the folks who never did contract or work with us, how the process works, and hold their hand to the end.
Yeah, and I think I would just say, being on the other side, I think our team, the challenge sometimes is getting to the right person, but we have some really good people that are that work hard to try to bring people into the organization and get people registered and get people set up. I think sometimes the challenge for some businesses is finding that right person for them, because the council is a huge organization, and depending on what you sell or how you want to engage or what you want to do, there are different people that you should be talking to at the council, and sort of mapping that in itself is a bit of a challenge. But I would just say, as feedback I've had recently is that I think people are seeing a change in our behavior, in our activities, in our engagement, and so we're definitely hearing positive feedback from businesses, BIPOC businesses in the community, and people are noticing that that change that has happened from our staff, and I think it sounds like it's very much appreciated. And obviously, we all acknowledge we have room to go, but we're going on the right path, and so we also have to acknowledge that we're making positive changes and making steps in the right direction, and we kind of need to, sometimes we just need to do more of the same, and let some of these things sort of be able to play out and see how they continue to progress, and keep listening to people. If there are things that we can tweak and change and do differently, then obviously we're open to doing that too. But and as Elaine said, beg, borrow, and steal great ideas from other agencies that are doing things well. We're never afraid to do that either. So, any other thoughts or comments on this piece? This was really useful information, I think, for everybody. All right, thank you all for that great presentation. Seeing none, Deb, do you have a motion?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move to close this meeting under Section 13D.03, Subdivision 1 of the Minnesota statutes, so we can consider a labor development and negotiation related to labor strategies.
Is there a second for that motion?
Lilligren seconds.
The motion has been made by Barbara. Lilligren has seconded the motion. The governing body of a public employer by majority vote of, in a public meeting may decide to hold a closed meeting under provision section 13D-03 subdivision 1B of the Minnesota statutes. The discussion in this closed meeting under the law must be confined to labor negotiation strategy developments and/or discussion and reviews of labor proposals. The proceedings of the meeting closed under law will be tape recorded, preserved for 2 years, and made available to the public as provided by the law. A roll call motion on the vote to close the meeting will happen. Once the meeting is closed, we will not conduct any other business during that meeting, and we will adjourn at the end of the closed session. So can we get a roll call on this motion, please?
Barber,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Musse,
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the motion carries. And as I said, once we get finished completing the discussion on our labor strategies, I just want to let everybody in the public know that we will be ending the meeting and adjourning immediately after those discussions, and no other business will be discussed or conducted during that session. And for the record, please note that this meeting is closed to the public at 3:18 on May 26th, or sorry, 3:18 on June 9th, 2021. Thank you.